Hey, if your hips hurt, then this could be for several reasons. They could be too tight and you need to gain more flexibility. They could be too weak and you need to gain more strength, or a lot of other reasons that could cause your hip to hurt. But today, we're gonna show you a little clip from our Lower Body Fix Masterclass, where I'm gonna show you several different movements that are gonna make your hips feel amazing regardless of the reason why that's happening. Take a look. So hips, all right, so many people have tight hips, and while I could focus on a lot of different ways to stretch the hips, I'm gonna focus on two ways that almost everybody's tight in their hips. And usually it's either tight one way or the other, sometimes it's tight both ways. But really, a lot of times when people think about stretching the hips, they think about doing like straddle stretches, you know, with your legs out wide like this, things like that. But really the biggest problem I see with the hips is hip internal rotation. That's the ability to rotate your hip inward like this and your foot outward like that, or hip external rotation, the opposite. Oftentimes, people really struggle with hip internal rotation or hip external rotation. So here's a simple rule for you. What you want to do is figure out how much internal rotation do you have and how much external rotation do you have. So while sitting in a chair, you can literally just take your foot to the outside and you could drop your knee down and you could look and see, how high is my knee away from the ground? Okay, yeah, it's about that high. Maybe it's about that height on my ankle here, okay? Now if I do the opposite and I open my knee up like this, how high is my knee away from the ground? Oh, it's maybe a little further on the outside, but not too bad. What we want is we want symmetry between our internal and external rotation. Now, some of the people watching this have just done this test and just discovered that they go, oh yeah, I can't do any internal rotation, or the opposite, right? It's really common for people to have an excessive muscle imbalance in their hip internal versus external rotation. So, how do we stretch it? Well, if we're just beginning and we have really tight hips, then the stretches I just showed you to test this can be the stretches that you use. So simply doing this. Internally rotating your knee, shouldn't hurt your knee. The big thing here is we're internally rotating from the bone. We're not driving the knee sideways. Remember, we're not breaking the hinge joint here. So internally rotating the knee. If you need to, you can even grab your thigh and turn it like this. And what you'll feel is a really strange stretch on the inside of your hip capsule right here. Now you can hold that position, and if you want, you can put a little pressure with your hands. And the way I like to stretch the hips, because they're hard to loosen up, is you can push up against your hand like this to fire that little muscle that you felt stretching. Push up and hold for about 10 seconds. Then take a big breath in, and then go, and as you relax, let the hip internally rotate. Again, making sure that there's no pain on the side of your knee, right? And we can just hold this position again, 60 to 90 seconds on that internal rotation, and then slowly come out of it. Ooh, that should feel really good on the hips once we're done with that. Make sure you match it on the other side, 60 to 90 seconds, okay? Then, if you have hip external rotation issues too, rotate your hip to the outside and put your hand on the knee like this and drive the knee towards the ground, okay? Now, for a lot of people, their internal rotation will be a lot less than their external rotation. So one of the things we can do is we can bring this down to the ground, okay? And if this is too low for you, you can get some pillows to sit on, or a cushion, or a very low chair to sit on, right? So how we can do this is this. We can stretch hip external rotation by bringing the leg to the outside like this and pushing down on it, right? Trying to get that external rotation. We can do the butterfly position. This is a great way to stretch hip external rotation. Or one of my favorite moves to get mobility and strength in both internal and external rotation is called the hip 90-90. So in this one, we're gonna come into a 90-degree position. So I look down 90 degrees here in my leg, 90 degrees here in my back leg, and you might be up like this, you might be leaning backwards, that's totally fine, right? And then what we're gonna do is this. We're gonna go from 90-90, and we're gonna rotate around to 90-90 on the other side, okay? And we're just gonna rotate back and forth, pausing at the end position. In the end position, if we wanna do more internal rotation, twist your body that way and bring your chest towards your thigh. If you want more internal rotation, push down on this leg and lean your body away, okay? And then what we wanna work towards is, at first, you need your hands behind your back. As you do this, you might have to sit on a pillow. Then, you take the pillow out, and eventually, we can slowly work towards bringing our hands in front of us and being able to do the hip 90-90s like this without even needing our hands behind us for support. That's when we know we have good hip internal and external rotation, which is enough hip internal and external rotation to be able to do anything that you wanna do in your daily life while feeling really good in the process, okay? So those are my two favorite ways to stretch the hips. Picking a way to stretch the internal and external rotation of the hips is fantastic for really opening the hips up in the ways that most people are tight in them. If we don't have internal external rotation of the hips, then our knees are more susceptible to pain, and we end up moving through the joints above and below the hips, right? So the hips are really loose. They're supposed to be really flexible, but if they don't rotate like this, then I'm gonna move through the knee, and the knee's not supposed to move like that. Or I'm gonna move through the pelvis, and that's gonna give me SI joint pain and lower back pain. Okay, so we gotta get flexible hips in this internal, external rotation. One more for you. If that external rotation didn't work for you, I'll just show you another one of my favorites real quick, is putting your foot on top of the chair like this, okay? Bring your knee to the outside, and then just bow forward from the hips, and imagine bringing your chest towards your foot like this, okay? And then right there, you're just gonna breathe and relax and try to bring your body closer to your foot. And then eventually over time, you can either try to bring your head to your foot. I know this is an advanced stretch right here, or you could bring your foot to a higher surface, like the back of a chair like this, and then bringing your chest towards that. What a fantastic way to stretch the outsides of your hips and that hip external rotation. So that's another great one. For some of you who are more flexible, maybe you're hypermobile, being able to do those stretches can be fantastic for the external rotation. Okay, now let's talk about activating your glutes, okay? We've talked about activating your quads, your tibs, we've talked about stabilizing your arches, your ankles, so we've kind of worked our way up to here, but now let's focus on the glute. I'm gonna show you my single favorite glute activation drill, and it's something that anybody should be able to do, even if you're a complete beginner. It's really a great way to practice glute activation. So this one, I want you to do this one on a couch, in bed, on a nice comfy carpet. Don't do it on the hard floors or anything like that. So we're gonna come down to a position on our belly. I'm in an extension like this. That's only so I can talk to you. You guys can just relax your heads down like this if you need to. In this position, what you're gonna do is this. You're going to curl your heel towards the sky like this. You're going to push your pelvis into the ground. So the biggest mistake people make is they curl their heel up, and as they curl their heel up, their butt goes up like this, and they arch their lower back. That's putting pressure on the lower back. It's a pretty good sign you have what's called anterior pelvic tilt. We'll get to that in a second, okay? So instead, push your pelvis in the ground, and then from there, keep the pelvis pushed in, and try to lift the knee of the bent leg off the ground for just a second. And what you'll feel is the muscles of your glutes are gonna fire like crazy when you're doing this. Hold for a few seconds, and then relax. And then again, push your pelvis in, lift the knee up, hold for a few seconds, and then relax. If you need to test it too, you can take your thumb and you can push it down on your butt right here, and then you can lift your knee off the ground, and you can feel the butt muscle firing. So all we're doing for this movement is we're learning how to properly activate our glutes. Most people who have knee pain or pain in their lower back do not know how to use their glutes. You don't have good mind-muscle connection to your glute muscles. If that's you, then this drill right here should be one of the drills that you focus on. 60 to 90 seconds on the left, 60 to 90 seconds on the right. Do that every single day so you start feeling what it feels like to activate your glutes. Now, once you're able to squeeze both of your glute muscles, you feel like you have good control. You can squeeze that muscle till it almost feels like it's gonna cramp. Well, then we can flip it over and we can turn it around on our back and we can do the same motion. So you see when I'm lying on my back, what am I doing? I'm extending the hip, right? I'm bringing my knee back to facilitate glute activation. Now in this position, I'm gonna come into a lying position, in a bridge position, bring my heels underneath my butt, make sure my feet are straight forward, my knees are going the same direction as the toes. I'm gonna bring my palms toward the sky. A lot of people do this palms down, but that rolls the shoulder in, which encourages bad posture. So we wanna go palms up, fingertips away from ears, okay? From there, toes to the nose, so lift the toes up, and then press your heels into the ground and squeeze the glute muscles to extend the position, okay? And practice here, you can test your glute muscles. Are you squeezing them? Squeeze them, and then come back down. This is a really good way to practice that mind-muscle connection and build glute strength and strength in your back and your core for protecting your lower back. So we're kind of bridging the gap now between hips and lower back. So activating the glutes, one of the best ways to protect the lower back. So if you have a weak glutes and weak lower back, practice these two drills together, and you can start building that glute strength that's gonna support the lower back, and it's gonna support all the other movements we talked about right here. I'll show you how to wrap that together here in just a sec, okay? So that's the hips right there. We talked about internal, external rotation, and we talked about how to activate your glutes and your core to help strengthen the glutes and protect the lower back. Last step we're gonna do here today is we're gonna go over the lower back, but first we're gonna bring together the knee, the ankle, and the hips all at the same time, okay? So how we're gonna do this is with a single leg balance drill. So we've already done the single leg balance drill where our body is standing on one foot, right? So we've done this one, standing on one foot. Then we've done this one where we bend the knee a little bit. Now what we're gonna do for this one is this. I'm gonna do it in front of the chair today. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna hinge to the hips, and I'm gonna try to hold this position, okay? On one foot. Now if this is too hard for you, put that foot down. So again, I wanna emphasize something here. This is a progression. What I'm doing now is, say you spend a month on your foot, and then you got your balance down. Then you spend a month on your knee, now you got your ability to do this. Now you spend a month on activating your glutes, now we're moving to here. This isn't like I'm doing this tomorrow, okay? So this is a great video to save, come back to over and over again, because you can slowly work through this progression to really build the strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination you need to fix your lower body and make it feel amazing, okay? So again, hinge to the hips. This back leg can be used for support like this, and then boom, we're gonna hold it like this position, right here, okay? Ideally pushing through that back heel. And you're gonna have all 10 fingers this time on the chair, and the progression looks like this. We're gonna start with 10 fingers, we're gonna lift our thumbs. And then if you can hold it for 60 seconds on each side, then we're gonna lift our pinkies, just like before. Then our rings, then our middles, then the last one is our index fingers. And we're gonna practice being able to hold this position, which is going to make your glute muscles fire like crazy. Now, a couple notes in this position. When you're here, a lot of people have a tendency to open their hips up. When we're here, we wanna make sure our hips are parallel to the ground. They're not twisted out like this, okay? So parallel to the ground. The second thing is a lot of people have a tendency to drop a hip, meaning they're dropping their hip like this. Instead, we wanna focus on closing the gap here, so lifting our hip towards our shoulder so our body is still in one position. Basically, from our pelvis to our rib cage stays aligned and our hips stay parallel to the ground the entire time as we're holding this bottom position. But this is one of my absolute favorite drills for strengthening the glute muscles that are gonna protect your lower back and your lower body. It's literally just absolutely stunning drill. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Lower Body Fix Masterclass. Now, if you're wondering yourself, what else did you teach in the masterclass? Well, guess what? You can sign up right down below by clicking that link, and we're gonna send you for free the entire Lower Body Fix Masterclass, covering the foot, ankle, knee, hip, lower back, and tons of questions from our subscribers. So go ahead and click the link below, sign up, and we'll send you that link right now.